Girl Undercover Episode 9. Written by Julia Derrick. Ariel was standing at the fitness desk when I was done training Ian and about to give myself a workout before heading to Eve's funeral reception. She was as usual wearing one of her tiny tops that flaunted her perfect abs together with tights that looked like they had been painted on. They fit her so snugly. "Hi, Jamie, how are you today?" she said as I was about to walk by her, smiling at me. I really had no choice but to stop for a moment. "Hey, Ariel, I'm good. What about you?" "I'm great. Are you working out?" "Yeah, I was just about to go down to the third floor and do some full body stuff." "Me too. Let's go work out together. I could use some inspiration today." Sure." Ariel started walking toward the staircase that would take us down to the third floor and the functional training area. Again, I didn't know what else to do but to join her. "So how do you like working here so far?" Ariel asked me. "It's great. Everybody's so nice." "I know, right?" We entered the functional training area where there were currently more trainers working out than members. Loud pop music filled the workout floor, its beat uplifting and making you feel like pushing yourself. "What do you want to do first?" Ariel asked. "How about some squats with overhead presses?" I had already resigned myself to the fact that I was not going to get rid of Ariel, so I might as well make the best out of the situation. Maybe I would figure out why she seemed so hell-bent on becoming friends with me. I didn't buy that she was only after fitness inspiration and new moves. No, there was something else behind her eagerness to work out with me. We went over to a wall where rows of dumbbells were placed on shelves and picked out a pair each. It was amazing how she could train and work out herself while keeping those long nails so flawless. I placed the weights on my shoulders and began to squat. "Let's do 15, I told Ariel. "Okay," she said and mimicked me. When we were almost done with the squats, Ariel glanced at me and said, "I really like that guy you just trained." I finished my set and put the weights back on the rack. "Who?" "Oh, you mean Ian." "I don't know what his name is." "The blonde, hot one. You know who I mean. English." "Yeah, that sounds like Ian." I went over to the TRX stand. "You like him?" Ariel giggled. "Yeah, he's so cute. Is he single?" "As far as I know, yeah." I contemplated her as she began doing rows with the TRX straps. Is this the reason she is so eager to get to know me? I wondered quietly. No, it couldn't be. The day she asked me to join her for lunch, I had yet to train Ian. "You like him?" She was blushing now. "Oh my God, I have such a crush on that guy. Have had it for months. Is he nice? He seems nice?" "Yeah, he's great." I wasn't about to tell her how smug and annoying he could be. If she ever got to know him, she'd see that for herself. "Do you think he might be into me?" She gazed at me with such expectation that I didn't have the heart to say I had no idea. The girl clearly wanted to hear something more positive. So I smiled and said, "Sure, why not?" Then I remembered that she had a tendency to be very persistent when she was into a guy. A little too persistent. The memories of how she tried to get her claws into Nick, undeterred in the face of his rejection, came rushing back to me all at once. Maybe I shouldn't have sounded quite that optimistic. Well, it was too late now, and judging from the light that went on behind Ariel's eyes, I wouldn't be allowed to retract my statement easily. "Really," she said, "you think you can introduce us? In a non-obvious way." I can't see why not." I finished my set of rows and moved on to doing jump lunges. Ariel soon joined me, jumping with even more energy than I was. She grinned big at me. "That would be so great. When are you guys training next? Maybe I can swing by and you can do it then?" We're training Friday at noon. Oh, that's perfect. I have a break then. I can totally swing by and say hi then. I nodded as I finished my set of lunges. We'll probably be on the 5th floor then. Don't worry, I'll find you guys. The club's big, but not that big. She finished her lunges as well and clasped her hands together, pressing them to her huge chest. Oh, I can't wait until it's Friday. I have a good feeling about me and this guy. I just smiled at her again and nodded, thinking that I'd better warn Ian about what was to come. The sky was overcast, and it was drizzling lightly when I exited the subway a couple of hours later, the perfect weather for a somber funeral. The reception should be going strong by now, having started a while ago. I hadn't bothered to change my looks in any way since I was going to act like I had met Eve at Nikki and become friendly with her there. The mood inside the big restaurant was cheerier than I had expected it to be considering the occasion. Eve must have had lots of friends and family because the establishment that had been rented for this event was jam-packed with chattering people. I was grateful for this, as it would make my task that much easier. If I couldn't find someone in here that would shed light on what was really going on with Eve and the homeless man, I would never know. I walked up to the buffet that was filled with cheeses, cold cuts, olives, and crackers, as well as cookies and cake. I grabbed a plate and chose a few cheese cubes, a couple of slices of salami and crackers, then went to a corner where I could scope out my surroundings, figure out who to approach. As I picked at my food, I noted that quite a few people had blotchy faces and red, swollen eyes like they had been crying a lot. I could spot at least a dozen from my current vantage point. Some were still sniffling into napkins and handkerchiefs, hanging on to each other for support. Well, for someone as cold-hearted and mean-spirited as Eve had appeared in her Facebook post and been described by Pete and Lisa, she sure would be missed by several. They couldn't all be of the same ilk as she had been, could they? I kept looking and looking, but I couldn't see anyone that appeared even remotely similar to the ones I had deemed to be close to her on Facebook. Of course, I didn't necessarily have to approach them. Not all people liked Facebook. Surely, with the amount of people here, there were others who had known her well. I had almost emptied my plate when I finally spotted a couple of people I could approach, a boy and a girl that were talking quietly in a corner. They looked like they were of college age and wore preppy outfits. Unlike so many others, their eyes were dry. They also had a friendly air about them. I placed my now clean plate on the table and sidled up to them. Taking a quiet breath, I looked straight at the boy who seemed to be the more dominant of the two and smiled. He smiled back and gave me a small nod, cute dimples having formed in his cheeks. I immediately stuck out a hand in his direction and introduced myself. "Nice to meet you, Jamie," he said. "I'm Henry, and this is my friend Nora." The dark-haired girl with the huge eyes smiled at me, and we shook hands. "We're both members of Eve's church," Henry continued, which had me taken aback. I had never pegged Eve for the church-going type. Was it possible that I had misheard him? I'd better double-check. "Church," I said. I wasn't aware that Eve went to church. "Which church is that?" "The Journey Church. It's close to Times Square." "Oh. Must be a church that doesn't approve of homeless people," I thought while studying Henry and Nora, searching for signs of evil on them. I couldn't find any to the contrary. They looked like nice people. "How did you know Eve?" Henry asked. "I'm a member at her gym," I replied. "We became friendly there." Henry looked impressed. "You're a member at Nikki? That's such a great gym." "She took me rock climbing there once. I wish I could afford to become a member." He twirled a hand that had perfectly manicured nails and sighed. "Oh well, one day I will." I took a closer look at him. This guy just had to be gay, which made the whole church thing even weirder. Maybe he was still in the closet and wanted to stay there. "How did you hear about this awful thing that happened to Eve?" Nora asked. "When she didn't show up for our lunch the other day, I got worried, so I called her house and her mom answered. That's how I found out. Her mom invited me to come to the funeral. Eve's mom is dead." Nora stared at me, those big eyes looking like they were about to pop out of their sockets. Both her parents died when Eve was 10. Damn, how could I have made such a stupid mistake? I had known both her parents were dead from talking to Ian. I should have figured this was going much too well, but I wasn't about to admit that I had just crashed this party. So I coolly met Nora's probing gaze, determined to save face. "Really? How strange." "Well, then who was it that I spoke to?" "The person claimed to be Eve's mother. Why would someone lie about something like that?" "I don't know," Nora said, still staring at me with ping-pong eyes. She didn't seem friendly at all any longer. "Do you think you might have misheard the person Henry suggested?" Looking a lot nicer as he gazed at me through his Harry Potter glasses. I screwed up my mouth. Maybe it was her maid that answered. "Does she have a maid? She never mentioned a maid to me." "Yes, I think she might," Henry said. He turned to Nora. "You knew her better than me. Did she have a maid?" "Yes, she did have a maid," Nora replied, barely meeting Henry's gaze. She was so insistent on staring at me. Out of the two, she was definitely the brighter one. But I wasn't about to buckle, even if this conversation was getting more and more awkward. I needed to get away from these two before it got worse. Nora didn't seem like she was about to let me get off the hook anytime soon. Then it must have been her maid who answered the phone. Speaking of phones, I think someone's calling me. I reached for my phone in my purse and pulled it out. I glanced back at Henry and Nora and smiled apologetically. "Yes, someone's calling me. I had it on vibrate. I need to take this. Excuse me." I walked over to a corner and pretended to talk on my phone, all the while keeping track of Nora and Henry to see if it looked like they were about to alert someone about the weird chick who'd claimed Eve's dead mother invited her to the funeral. But they were just talking to each other again, not even looking over in my direction. Still, the sooner I could get out of their line of vision, the better. They might be discussing the best way to break to the host that I might not belong there. I pretended to disconnect my call, and then made my way farther into the big space, only stopping when I got to the other end of it, far away from the two churchgoers. I took in all the people in this part of the restaurant and told myself that at least I knew more about Eve now than when I'd gotten to the reception. So overall, the conversation hadn't been a total waste. Who would have thought this chick went to church? Looks sure were deceiving. Something Nora's behavior further reinforced. Hopefully the next person I spoke to wouldn't be as aggressive and unfriendly. I wondered what her problem might be. I sauntered up to an older man standing by the windows. He peered out into the rain while sipping on a tumbler full of what must be scotch. He was tall and balding, dressed in a dark, tailored suit and tie. I positioned myself next to him, and, crossing my arms, I peered out the window as well. The restaurant faced the street, and people were walking by outside, cars driving on the road. This time I was going to wait until the man struck up a conversation. Maybe that would work better, but he just kept gazing out the window while sipping on his scotch. I waited another minute and then decided to move on. He obviously wasn't in a chatty mood. But right as I was about to move on, he began to speak. Ironic, isn't it? He had another sip of his drink, the ice cubes clinking softly against the glass. "What's that?" I asked, turning to face him. He had so many wrinkles and so little hair on his head that he must be in his 60s at least. Even so, his energy and the way he carried himself made him appear like a man in his early 40s. That she would fall victim to a homeless person. He threw me a quick glance revealing red-rimmed eyes before gazing out the window again. I thought about what he had just said, not about to screw up my second chance at getting to know more about Eve through some of her friends. Though was this one a friend? He looked more like he could be her grandfather or maybe older uncle. Considering what he had just said, I didn't think he had been friends with Eve on Facebook. If he was, he couldn't have been nearly as active as she'd been on that site. Anyone who had seen the hateful cartoon she had posted about homeless people would never have uttered such a comment. Actually, what had happened to her seemed more like poetic justice than irony. Before I could say anything, he spoke again, shaking his head. She was such a good person, cared so much about the homeless. Yeah, he's definitely not aware of the kinds of horrible things she posted on Facebook, I thought. Yes, it's very sad, I said, just to say something. I was eager to find out who this man was now. Excuse me for asking, but how did you know Eve? I met her at the gym. I was her teacher. Oh, really? In college? No, I was her improv teacher. Eve wanted to become a comedian. Well, she was a comedian, an excellent comedian. He clicked his tongue and had another large sip of his drink. The world experienced a great loss when Eve left us. It's truly a tragedy. A comedian? Wow, I hadn't seen that one coming. Maybe a model or actress, but not anything involving comedy. She had seemed much too self-conscious to be into comedy. Then again, I never really got to know her. This was getting more and more interesting. Funny, she never told me she was into comedy, I ventured, hoping it would stir this melancholic man to keep talking about this. And I knew her fairly well. She was. She had a great ear for the bizarre in life. Were you aware of all her work to help the homeless? It was a passion we both shared. I couldn't help myself then. I just had to turn around and stare at the man. Really? Now I feel like I didn't know Eve at all. No, I wasn't aware of that. In fact, after that Facebook post she made, I didn't think she was all that concerned about the homeless. He faced me, bringing his bushy eyebrows together as though he was trying to figure out what I was referring to. As I was about to enlighten him, he threw his head back and let out a belly laugh that was utterly out of place considering the tragic occasion. When he settled down, he gazed at me with eyes full of tears. He wiped at them with his free hand. No, it doesn't seem like you knew Eve well, I must say. Are you talking about the cartoon she posted in which she urged people to kick him like the dog he supposedly is? Yes, that was what I was referring to. That was an example of Eve's highly creative, comedic abilities. That post was only meant as a joke. An April Fool's joke. I stared at him, sure I had misheard him at first. Eve's post had only been a joke? Are you okay? The old man asked, lowering his tumbler and peering closer at me. I quickly wiped off the shock I felt from my face. Yeah, I am. Sorry, I was just so relieved to hear that it wasn't true after all. You actually believed Eve was being serious? You really can't have known her well then. Didn't you see what day it was posted? No, I didn't pay attention to the date. I honestly didn't know what to think. Good thing I got a chance to clear that up for you then. Most people realized it was just Eve pulling one of her famous pranks. I thought it was fabulously funny when I saw it, especially reading the comments below. She really got people riled up. Well, I'm glad to hear it was only meant as a joke. An extremely unfunny one, I wanted to add but didn't. I was beginning to question this man's ability to judge comedic talent. If this was his idea of funny, I wasn't too worried about the world having lost a great talent in Eve's passing. He was chuckling now, almost maniacally, which made me wonder how many of those tumblers of scotch he'd had. Of course, my mind was more concerned with other matters at the moment. Matters such as the last piece of evidence to support my theory the crazy bum had been provoked into killing Eve having just vanished. In the face of what I had just learned, Ian's theory seemed a lot more plausible. Out of the corner of my eye, I noted that Henry and Nora were coming in my direction, looking directly at me as they were making their way through all the people in the big room. Based on the grave look on their faces, I didn't think it would be a friendly conversation. No, Nora must have convinced Henry that I was a weirdo who did not belong at this reception. After speaking to the man beside me and finding out that I was completely unaware of Eve's sick sense of humor, they would have no doubts I didn't really know Eve. "Excuse me," I said to the still chuckling improv teacher. "I need to visit the ladies' room." But instead of heading to the restrooms, I strode toward one of the restaurant's exits, which fortunately was close by. I had gotten what I had come for anyway, so I might as well leave. Before long, I was out on the street, moving away from Eve's reception. The thoughts were racing in my mind as I tried to make sense of everything. So the post had only been Eve's twisted idea of comedy then? Even if it was so bizarre it sounded like something taken straight out of a David Lynch movie, what I had just been told had to be the truth. The old man had no reason to lie to me. I snorted to myself. Wow. Who would have ever thought the skinny, shallow blonde I'd been about to train had such a dark side to her? The soft drizzle had escalated into heavy sheets of rain right as I reached the subway station. Grateful not to be completely drenched, I dove below ground in the nick of time. Eve might not have been the evil person I had thought, but I still refused to believe men from Adler had approached the bum to give him a knife, then had taken him across town while spurring him to kill skinny, blonde chicks. That was ridiculous. In addition to it being implausible for the Adler men to get away with such a feat, they must also have been psychic. Eve had filed the lawsuit against the Adler group the morning of the attack, but they had never been served. How had they found out about it so quickly? Even if they had some way of finding out, how had they managed to find just the right bum, and then known that Eve would walk in a certain area at a certain time? I supposed I could buy that the witnesses were really Adler plants, and that Pete had been told I was after him. People from Adler could have seen me outside his work, but not the bum. It was more likely he had hallucinated the story about the men. How could Adler have known the bum would attack Eve the second he spotted her? If what Ian claimed was true, that there were people conspiring to take over the world, I doubted they would just pick up a random crazy, give him a knife and some instructions, and hope for the best. It would have been so much more efficient to run over Eve with a car or something instead. I found my phone in my purse and texted Ian. How could the Adler men have known the bum would attack Eve as soon as he saw her? I don't buy that all they needed to do was tell him she was out to get him. No one would go through all that trouble without having a more surefire plan. After I'd pressed send, I called George. He had yet to get back to me about Lisa and what was going on with her. I wasn't just going to take Ian's word for her having two phones, and that she'd been in touch with Pete while she was in the bathroom after all. George answered right before the call could go to voicemail. "Hey, Longoria, everything okay?" He sounded out of breath. "Yeah, they're fine. How are things with you?" "I'm crazy busy, but other than that, everything's good. Did I leave you a message yet about that girl you asked me about?" "No, that's why I was calling. Did you find anything on her?" "Yeah, sorry I did. I thought I'd called you." "It's okay. What did you find?" "She has two phones, and she was using one of them to text someone called Pete around the time you asked me." My phone buzzed then, announcing an incoming text. "All right, thanks, George. That's all I needed to know. Gotta go." We said goodbye and I checked who'd texted me. Ian, of course. I'm thinking they inserted a chip into him while in the car that programmed him to have no choice but to kill Eve as soon as he saw her. I chuckled without mirth. I should have known Ian would have the perfect answer to my question. That night, I dreamed of Nick. Can you imagine what our lives would have been like if you didn't take that assignment Nick says? nibbling on my ear. I'm lying on top of him in bed and his arms are around me, holding me tight. We have spent most of the night making love, only sleeping a couple of hours. More than a year has passed since we got married, but we don't seem to be able to get enough of each other. I would never have met you. I really don't want to ever have to imagine that I whisper. Too painful. True. I nestle my face in the crook of his neck, close my eyes and inhale my husband. There is no better scent than his, warm skin with a hint of lemongrass and sage. When I have gotten my fill, feeling invigorated and ready for the day ahead, I push myself up onto my elbows so that I face him. Smiling at him, I lean down and land a feather-light kiss onto his lips. Those enticing, perfect lips that lured me in the first time they ended up on mine. Even if I didn't want to admit it to myself back then, I was already his from that moment on. Nick and I were meant to be together. No matter how much this dark-haired man put me through the ringer, he stole my heart that day. A lock of my long, honey-brown hair falls onto Nick's tan cheek and he removes it, tucking it behind my ear. His blue eyes suddenly get that boyish gleam to them I know so well, telling me he is up to something. Do you know what I think he asks in that seductive voice of his? That I should call in sick so I can spend it in bed with you, unlike Nick, who has a day off today. I need to get ready so I can head to the station and get to work. Trust me, I wish I could, but I have some appointments lined up. Can't be changed. He grins, looking delighted. I wish you could too, but I was not about to ask you to do that. We have plenty of time to replicate this amazing night when we're both off duty. This is just the beginning. Then, what did you have in mind? His smile loses all of its playfulness and becomes sober. An addition to this union. I turn my head and frown slightly, not getting what he is referring to at first, but then I do. A baby? Really? So soon? Yeah, why not? We both want kids and things seem to be stable. We're safe now. Why wait? I wouldn't mind being a young father. Not that 31 is all that young. I screw up my face and think about what Nick has just suggested. It isn't that I'm against having children, I want to have them as much as Nick, it is just that it was so unexpected. The smile on Nick's lips fades away. I'm sorry, Gab. I didn't mean to push you. Really, I've just been thinking about it a lot in the last few weeks is all. If you don't feel ready, just forget that I brought it up. Don't be silly. You're not being pushy. I want you to be real with me. Tell me everything that's on your mind. I was just a little surprised to hear you say it. Can I think about it? He pinches my cheek and kisses me. I wouldn't want it any other way. I want you to feel as ready as I am to have a baby. Take as much time as you need. Okay. I push myself off Nick and head into the bathroom next to our bedroom. I step into the shower cabin and switch on the water. As the warm sprays hit my body, I already know what to tell Nick. He is right, why wait? I'm 27 now, a great age to start a family. We are both making enough money and feel as convinced as we can ever expect to feel that we are safe from any repercussions from Cardoza. I close my eyes and stick my face into the warm water coming out of the shower head. Yes, why wait? We're happy and comfortable. We can afford to add a child to our lives. I open my eyes and reach for the soap in the corner basket that contains most of our toiletries. Blood is splashing onto my arm, lots of blood. Deafening rock music suddenly fills the bathroom. I scream and automatically turn my face toward the shower head. Warm water is no longer coming out of it, but blood. So much blood, the entire shower cabin is soon full of it. I scream and keep screaming. The horrible scene was still with me as I opened my eyes and stared out into the darkness of my bedroom. Sitting up, my face and body felt clammy with cold sweat and my heart raced. I lay back down on my pillow and switched on the lamp on my nightstand to make myself stop thinking about Nick and all the blood, but it was hard, so hard. I missed him so much. Weeks had passed since I dreamed of Nick. The heavy-duty sleeping pills I took every night usually produced a deep, dreamless sleep for which I was profoundly grateful. I didn't want to think of Nick. It was much too painful. Would the pain ever go away? I tried to think. Had I forgotten to take the pills before going to bed last night? As far as I could remember, I had taken them as usual. If the dreams persisted, I might have to look into other pills. Somehow, I managed to fall asleep again with no more bad dreams of Nick, but I was still not feeling like myself as I walked into Nikki the following day. I clocked in for my floor shift and roamed the floors of the gym like a ghost. It was only when I bumped into Emma, who was standing at the fitness desk, that I began to feel more normal. "Hey, Jamie," Emma said and smiled at me. "How are you?" I returned her smile. "I'm okay. What about you? Have you recovered from that bad meal you had the other day?" We hadn't gotten a chance to catch up since that day when she had suddenly felt sick and had to rush to the restroom to throw up. She gazed at me, confused. "What bad meal?" "You told me you had salmon in the cafeteria, and that something must have been wrong with it that made you sick." She brightened. "Oh yeah, I remember." She lowered her voice and leaned closer to me. "That was so embarrassing. I'm sorry you had to be privy to that." "Don't be sorry. Could have happened to anyone." "Right. Well, I sure am glad my morning sickness is going away finally." This time it was my turn to look at her confused. Morning sickness. Emma didn't answer, and instead just looked at me for a moment, throwing a nervous glance over her shoulder as if to check if there were other people nearby. She said, "Yeah, morning sickness. I might as well let you know that I'm pregnant, but please don't spread this around to everyone else. I'm only in the first trimester, so I might still have a miscarriage." I stared at her, a little shocked, but since Emma herself seemed so happy, I quickly wiped the surprise off my face and smiled. "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." "Congratulations." "Thank you. Yes, I'm so happy. I've always wanted to become a mother." "Good for you." Involuntarily, my eyes went down to her ring finger. Had I missed the fact that Emma was married or engaged? But her finger was bare. "I'm using a sperm donor," she said pointedly. "I'm still single, but I didn't want to wait. I'm not getting any younger." Embarrassed that I must have been so obvious, I met her gaze again. "Oh, no, why wait? Well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it'll go well." For a moment, the dream I had last night came back to me, but I quickly made it go away. "Thanks, me too. Hopefully it'll be okay. I'm having great doctors helping me, and they keep assuring me everything will be fine." "That's so great." Emma looked beyond me and smiled. "Here's my client finally." She looked at me quickly. "See you later, Jamie." "Yes, see you later." I watched her as she and her client, an older gentleman, walked around the big divider and continued down to the third floor. So that must have been why she had thrown up that day then. Who would have thought? I hoped for her sake that the pregnancy would go well, but at the same time I couldn't help but worry a little for her. Being a single mother in New York on a trainer's salary was going to be tough. Not that this had seemed to faze Emma one bit. Maybe it was because she had more money than I thought. I adjusted my trainer's shirt and started walking. I should worry about my own life, not Emma's. She must know what she was doing if she went to such lengths to get pregnant. Yet, instead of being happy for her, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that came over me as I thought of her pregnancy, the subtle gnawing in my stomach that something about it was just not right. It felt exactly the same way it had felt when I suspected Ian of being behind the nasty texts. Something was up, but I just wasn't able to put my finger on it. As I walked toward the stairs so I could get to the 5th floor, I resigned myself to the fact that it was probably only because of the very vivid dream I'd had about Nick wanting us to have a child that I was feeling so off about Emma's pregnancy. Then I spotted Ian walking down the stairs, and I had other things to worry about. He smiled at the sight of me and stopped when he was in front of me. "Well, hello there, Miss Jamie. What a nice surprise. Doing a floor shift?" "Yeah, I was just about to do a round on the 5th floor. What are you up to?" I wasn't about to ask him any more questions regarding Eve's murder. Surely he would have great comebacks to whatever I'd ask, great if you subscribe to conspiracy theories, and I could use a break from that case. Even if the two eyewitnesses' behavior was odd and one had ties to Adler, I still wasn't fully buying that Adler and certain government officials were behind everything. There had to be more to the story. Maybe Pete and Lisa had been telling the truth. Maybe Eve had snapped and acted totally out of character. The girl had seemed quite unstable. Then there was the whole situation with Eve suing Adler. Was the suit really so serious they had to get rid of her completely? It seemed like overkill when they could easily just settle with her and be done with it. They were a successful company and could afford it. "I just took a spinning class," Ian replied. "Now I'm going for a swim." As I was about to say something about him working out so much, Ariel appeared in the stairs, walking down toward us. She was wearing a pair of extremely low-cut tights with leopard print and a minuscule workout top from which her sizable boobs threatened to flow over. She brightened as she discovered me and Ian standing at the bottom of the stairs. "Oh, hi, Jamie," she said, and continued down to us. "Hi, Ariel, how are you?" I said, having no choice but to introduce her to Ian. She had positioned herself right next to him, standing very close. He'd get an awesome view of her boobs if he turned his head to the left and looked down, I noted darkly. I didn't like the way Ian perked up as she had stopped beside him, but there was absolutely nothing I could do about that, nor should I want to. I cleared my throat and smiled, getting ready to do what I had promised her now was as good a time as any. "Have you two met?" I asked innocently. "This is Ian, my client." "Ian, this is Ariel, one of Nikki's top trainers." Ian and Ariel shook hands and told each other how nice it was to meet. I wasn't surprised to hear the excitement in Ariel's voice as she said this, but hearing the same in Ian's sure took me aback. I looked at him, careful not to show what I felt. What the hell? Did he actually like girls who were as showy and fake-looking as Ariel? I would never have guessed. Of course, the bigger question was, why did I care? Really, I should be happy this might be a love match. Not only should it result in Ian having less time to bother me about searching for politicians and God knows what else, but I would then have more time to get on with my own investigation. It wasn't like I wanted to date Ian myself. Yes, I needed to encourage these two to get better acquainted. "You're one of the club's top trainers?" Ian asked, smiling at Ariel, whose eyelashes went a mile a minute the way she was batting them at him. "Then what am I doing with Jamie?" Ariel squirmed and giggled. "Oh, don't be silly. Jamie is a great trainer. You're in great hands with her." "Yeah, I was only kidding," Ian said, and nudged me. "She really is a good trainer. I'm in better shape than ever because of her. Of course I might be dead by the time she's done with me. I almost had a heart attack when she had me run intervals on the track. 10 times I had to run it. Can you believe it? She's such a slave driver. I couldn't walk for days after that session." "You needed to be put in your place," I said, looking at him coolly. My eyes went to Ariel. "This guy's such a wimp. I bet your clients never complain about being pushed too hard." "Oh yes, they do," Ariel said, rolling her eyes dramatically. "Some of them never stop." She looked at Ian. "But at least all that hard work has paid off for you. You're in amazing shape." She put a hand on Ian's strong upper arm and caressed the big muscles there. Oh God, could she be any more obvious? I thought. Not that Ian seemed to mind. He just smiled and thanked her for the compliment. You're in great shape yourself, he added, giving her body an appreciative once-over. Thanks, Ariel said and leaned so close to Ian her boobs nearly touched him. I try. Are you from England? You have the nicest accent. Yes, I am indeed. I was born and raised in London, but moved to the States after college. Well, a couple years after graduation. Oh, really? Ariel continued. What made you move to America? London seems like such a cool place to live. I looked at Ian, curious to hear what he would answer to this given that he was a disgraced FBI agent. As interested as he seemed to be in Ariel, I couldn't imagine he'd tell her the truth and reveal what a loser he was. I come from a family of jewelers and art dealers, and my father wanted me to expand our business into America, he said, not blinking once as he smoothly delivered the lie. Ariel brightened considerably. Wow, you're a jeweler? That's great. I love diamonds and pearls. And rubies. Well, any gems really. I'm sure most jewels would look great on you, Ian said, his chameleon eyes having taken on a dark hue that gleamed now. I looked at him, amazed. Okay, so he was into Ariel and wanted to bang her. But where would he get jewels to give her? After a comment like the one he had just given her, I couldn't blame her for expecting him to present some to her when they went out. If this conversation continued in a similar fashion, that would definitely happen. In fact, I would help make it happen right now. I took a step back from the two of them, and pretending to take them in, I said, you know what? The two of you would make such a nice couple. You should go out together. I gave Ian a challenging glance. Hey, why don't you take Ariel's phone number and set up a date? This way you can show her some of the family jewels. Ariel looked a little shocked but also pleased. Ian didn't seem to know what to do at first, but then he cleared his throat and faced Ariel. Ariel, may I have your phone number? I'd love to show you some of our jewels. Sure, Ariel said. Want to put my number in your phone? She nodded at the iPhone attached to Ian's arm. Yeah, good idea, Ian said and removed the phone from his arm. What is it? She rattled off her number and Ian entered it, then called the number. This way you'll have my number too, so you can call me. Great, Ariel said and grinned, delighted. I'll text you as soon as I have my phone so you know I got it. Brilliant, Ian said. Well, I'm going to get going. I have a lunch meeting at 1, and I want to get a quick swim in before that. Again, it was so nice to meet you, Ariel, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. Yes, me too, Ariel replied. It was so nice to talk to you. Ian looked at me. See you tomorrow at noon for training. Yes, you will indeed. Make sure you come well rested because we're going to work out hard. Don't we always? Ian shot me a smile that I couldn't quite read. It was light and teasing, yet had an undercurrent of danger. He gave Ariel a nod, then swiveled around and left. As soon as he had disappeared, Ariel looked at me, excitement personified. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to go out with this guy. Thanks so much for helping making it happen, Jamie. You're the best wingwoman ever. My pleasure, I replied as I thought about what had just transpired. Maybe I shouldn't have been quite so helpful making it so these two would go out. Really, I hadn't given Ian much of a choice but to take her number. He would now have to ask her out, or he'd end up looking like a total jackass. Well, I calmed myself as doubt that I had put in motion something I shouldn't have made itself noticed. He did act like he was really into her. If he wasn't, he shouldn't have flirted with her like that. It was mean to lead people on. It would be fine. Did you know his family are jewelers? Ariel asked, bright like the sun still. I can't say I was aware of that, no, but we don't really talk about personal stuff. Well, if they collect jewelry and art, it means he must be wealthy, don't you think? I guess. I really don't know anything about that. You'll probably find out when the two of you go out on your first date. Yes, that's true. Oh my God, this is so exciting. I can't wait for him to call me. Her face went dark suddenly. Do you think he'll call? Oh God, what did I do? Why did I put him in such an awkward position? I made myself smile at Ariel. I can't see why he wouldn't call you. Not after taking your phone number and everything. That would be screwed up. I'm sure he'll call. If not, you can always call him, right? Ariel's brown eyes widened. No, I would never do that. I don't pursue men. He'd have to call me. I wanted to tell her that she was lying. She had pursued Nick. I had seen that with my own eyes. But mentioning that would be stupid on so many levels. So I just nodded. He'll call. I'd make him call her myself? Or I had a feeling she'd never stop badgering me about it. My phone buzzed in my pocket then, alerting me I had a new text. I should get going, I said to Ariel. I've been standing here forever. Rolf will kill me if he sees me. I waved to Ariel and walked up to the 5th floor. I wasn't really worried about our manager spotting me. I'd only needed an excuse to stop talking to Ariel finally. There was a bathroom next to the staircase that I entered. I'd check who had texted me, as I did my business in one of the 2 empty stalls there. I was glad I was alone in the restroom when I read the text, glad that no one was able to hear the loud gasp that came out of my mouth. It was from the person who'd been sending me those threatening texts. It had been a while since I'd heard from him. I assumed it was a he, so I had almost forgotten about it. The text said, "I'm still watching you. Get out while you can."